problems that have also been highlighted at large by the keynote speaker progress when it comes to higher education. So first, I want to touch on the issue of gender centers. Now, we see more and more gender centers being set up in institutions of higher learning, and this is a really good step in the right direction. But these centers have a purpose. Their purpose is to accelerate and see to it that gendered issues on these institutions of higher learning accelerated. But what do we see? We see that these centers are confronted with a number of problems so that they are not able to are left to the whims and caprices of the institutional leaders, and they decide who to put there, whether or not the person has the right gender politics, understand women's issues or not. And more you see that the aims and objectives of the center get lost of higher learning are gendered institutions, and they are driven by patriarchy. So the patriarchal influences also then determine the institutional gender cultures that drive us. And this is where we need to tackle. And this is where we need our men. This is where we need the change in mindset that has been alluded to by the first keynote speaker. So I think on this note, I want to save time for Liz, and I will stop here and get ready for questions that may come. Thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Professor Akusu, for that wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. I'm going to give a summary of what she said, what she just presented at the end of this panel, please, so that it can help us to prepare our questions. But for those who have their questions, please keep it at the end of the session, because we are trying to catch up with time. So our next panelist is Professor Barnabas Ikio, and Professor Barnabas is Professor Ikio is the SEFTA at Benue State University, which is one of the African Centers of Excellence. He holds a PhD from the University of Surrey, UK. Prof. Ikio is also a visiting fellow at the University of Greenwich, UK. He is supporting the work and mission of the NRI University of Greenwich to expand research excellence. Professor Barnabas Ikio was awarded a PhD in physics from the Advanced Technology Institute, University of Surrey, Guildford in the UK. He holds a postgraduate diploma in education and innovative university teaching. He is the president of Africa Science Information Access Network. Professor Ikio has 22 years teaching experience at college and university level. He has over 49 publications, including in Nature Scientific Reports. He has done courses in project management, procurement, and management of higher education. He has been a supporting consultant to the Inter-University Council of East Africa. He has managed grants in excess of over $15 million. So, Professor Ikio, you have the floor, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction. And thanks to the AAU for the opportunity again to share my experience and interaction on this issue on this very important day in our lives and history. And then also thanks again for making me the only man among these great women participating today. I've had this opportunity before, and I've always had this opportunity in my life because I grew up amidst 5 girls and in my family. And I noticed that much of what we are talking about, trying to promote equality for gender, both women and men in higher education, starts from the home. Because the home brings up a woman, brings up a man. And I will be just going around it to try and see about the key objectives of this session, to try and bring in aspects of how to create awareness in this space, how to look at platforms that we can promote this equality in higher education amongst women, and then strategies that we can do to invest in women, and then to look at the best practices. So like I said earlier on the aspect of awareness, we need to get this from home. And we realize that women are also human beings. And when you realize that women are also human beings, they have capacities similar to men, especially in soft items. In physical space, there may be some lack, but even that one is relative comparing to who the lady in question is. So I grew up in a home where everyone was meant to understand that education is meant for everybody at all levels, because my parents, my father and mother were all teachers, and they raised the children, both male and female, to go to study to highest level. So the picture in my backdrop here on the screen is a picture of my youngest sister and the picture of my wife on their convocation at the university. So they are about the same age. And I want to say that my mom got her PhD at about 57 years. My dad only had the first degree. And what that meant was that my dad, who was an early administrator in the secondary school as a principal, felt that he has risen in his career and he doesn't need more of higher education. And he decided to allow my mother to go on and have a higher education, and planned that he would later move to be a lecturer at a higher institution. While my dad decided that he would be a teacher in the secondary school and end it there. So as he had thought, my mother later went to become a lecturer in a higher institution, and she is still a lecturer in a college of education. So it's about starting from the home and getting the home to prepare and see that you shouldn't go to higher education because you're a woman. A house needs to show that whatever a male child is doing, a female child can do so. And that awareness needs to happen at the family level. When that happens, the woman builds a self-esteem that she takes into the public space. So she thinks that if they're talking about mathematics, she has to do it. Because I had an elder sister who used to teach me mathematics. So, and it means that she is a normal person, not because she's a lady. So we need to get this built into our family, the females at the family level as they're growing up. So they don't feel that they are women when they grow up, and therefore there are some things that are reserved for men. That is the aspect of awareness. And then when we also know that we will build capacity that can go on. It can be a male, it can be a female. And no one should come in to say that because you're a woman, you shouldn't take up anything. So higher education is for all. The man, and as I grew up and I went into the public space to study in the university and to go into work, and I've worked now, I take women to be normal. All the women I work for are all normal. I work with 5 women in my center who are management staff around me. There are just 3 males that work around me, and all of them will work as normal people. I don't regard to them because they are women. Create this awareness that it doesn't matter whether it is a male or a female. And even though the culture of the people says this, modernization has brought it to light that a woman can be a president of America. A woman can be a prime minister in Britain, and a man can also be. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't be. And then the confidence. Some parents wouldn't want to send their female children to go to certain institutions because even within the community, there are some areas females are not expected to go. So sometimes or affect participations of female in higher education. There is high lack of physiological planning for women. And of course, males may be also involved. We have seen instances where females pick up PhDs and get pregnant. And because of the physiological issues that are attached to pregnancy, they are not able to cope during the studies. So if they invest more on planning on how this physiological effect may come up, we will think that their evidence has to come from the. We have also seen instances where a female feels that if he suffers, the children may suffer, and maybe it may even lead to the marriage having a problem. So we need to work on the confidence building among these 2 sets of their females to pick up higher education because of the age. And to be honest, for Africa, majority of females within the ages are expected to be in higher education are or expecting to get married. So confidence to the spouses of anyone studying at our center by giving them an accommodation and access to basic amenities that they don't need to go out into the community to be scared of anything. And we allow the spouses to accommodation. So this kind of things promoted, increased our percentages in admissions to a higher level. And then within the workspace, you will see that majority can just have low esteem and are easily intimidated. So if you have leaders in higher education need to willingly need to come up to push these females to pick up this position, appointment of head of sales of the wife. It grew up from being he started with, and I remember when there was an opportunity for her to apply for a position to head a television station in my state. She was scared. She said that is normally going to be tough political position. But I pushed her to apply for it, and she was the only lady, and the government appointed her, and she has been doing it. And so we need to push these women. Today is a Women's Day. We need to talk about women. And I'm talking about this because these are the issues that affect this higher participation of women in higher education. When you build capacity and at a higher level, they are looking for gender equality. Most of these days, they will pick you and you will fill up the gap, because most of these agencies now, international organizations, are pushing for gender-based appointment, about trying to level participation, higher level education. If you didn't have that capacity, she will not be able to do that. And the same thing to my wife and to my young sisters and any other woman that works around me. The fact that a woman is reluctant. So by the time you push them.
Thank you so much, Professor EQ. Thank you so much for supporting women. You know, you are the only man that has been able to come up very strongly to give support to the women on such a day. You know, when we said that a man was supposed to join this panel, the first question I asked was, does a man feel the pinch of women? What pain does he know? What pain? How will he know the experiences that women encounter? But you actually, like you said, from the background, it starts from the home, and you've always been a supporter to women up to higher education. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Our last speaker, but not the least, will be no other person but my friend and sister, Mrs. Boma Sheila. Our sister Sheila, if you're there, I will not take much time to give an introduction because we know you are a household name in AAU. You've done a lot and you've initiated a lot as far as WoHEN is concerned, and you're one of the founding members of WoHEN. So if you're there, please, let's have your contribution. So we are waiting to see if Mrs. Sheila Boma is around, and then we are going to listen to her presentation. But for the meantime, if she's not there, I'm going to re-echo the presentations that we just received from our distinguished panelists while waiting for our panelist Sheila to come on board. If she does that, then we'll give her the space. But if she isn't, then we'll continue with our discussion while waiting. So I will start by thanking all the panelists. I want to thank the keynote keynote speakers. Particularly, I'm interested in the whole idea of women's reproductive roles. That has been a big challenge as far as women in higher education is concerned. And again, talking about mentorship as part of the solution to women's growth and assertiveness and agency in higher education is something that we've been talking, you know, and this is something that actually works, because when we have mentors, they will always lift up the hands of the younger career women in higher education, and even in leadership positions, they will be able to tell them how to migrate from a certain situation to another. Professor Atanga actually emphasized on the idea of substantive representation. True, we know that generally in higher education, when it comes to key decisions and key positions, women don't have that opportunity. And usually, like she mentioned, she gave an example that I experienced it at the chair of my department of English when I was in the University of WUA. You sit in a faculty board meeting, and when a discussion comes up and a female colleague says something, usually they will just brush her past. And when when a male colleague say that same thing, it's like, oh yes, like Professor ABCD just said. You see, these things try to make women to shy away and even to feel uncomfortable in the midst of men. And this is not limited only to our universities in Africa, it's everywhere. These are social problems that women have in most university settings because they always shove the women to the background and the men are always in front. But we thank God because we have even men, and most of our men now understand that women are supposed to be in key positions to give them support and also to help grow our university. She spoke about substantive representation. I still come back to this because it is something, if the voice of a woman, if a woman is not a dean or a vice chancellor or a provost, even with the gender centers that Professor Akoso just spoke about, it's very difficult to manage it. I remembered in my university, we were trying to create a gender center, and this file kept going back and forth, and I don't know for how long it took, and it never came to fruition. This is because it's something that has to do particularly with women. So we also need women who are in such positions to push forth to make sure that these centers are actually established in institutions, and they are not only established, they are being run correctly or the way they are supposed to be. I want to thank Professor Akoso again for talking a lot about the aim of creating the gender center and even the aim of that center, because usually when we create the centers, the aim of those centers are not met. And when we want the aims of those centers to be met, then we need to encourage our women, like, to speak out, because usually we create the center and students are even ashamed to come and report. There is no reporting. There is no reporting, and women don't come up to talk. Women don't come up to speak because it's like, oh, what do you want to show? So women should be capable to come up and actually express their minds, especially when they face harassment, even from male colleagues, which I want to say is very, very rampant in some higher education institutions. She mentioned about gender budgeting. So you see, this is very important because usually when we leave out the aspect of the budget that has to run women's issues on campus, women are incapable to meet up with those challenges. So it is a very important thing. Mentorship should be very effective. I remember in Cameroon, Professor Leke has a group where she brings in young early career scholars in higher education, and they start grooming and mentoring. And it takes them to all the levels, both in administrative mentorship and even in research and teaching. So it touches on all the different arms, and actually the women who are in that group have made a lot of progress. So we think mentorship is something that we need. And we actually need women who will be able to raise other women. And one of the things she mentioned was that other institutions, we should not leave this only to different establishments. Other institutions should come on board and help to see how we can create such groups and actually bring women together and talk, have a time that women can actually see from other women as role models, and they use them to climb the academic ladder. So that has been really a good recommendation. She spoke about sexual harassment. She spoke about power dynamics. And for power dynamics and sexual harassment, there is always blame the victim umbrage in sexual harassment because, she was raped because she dressed this way or because she did not dress this way. So the whole idea of improper or proper dressing, that blame the victim, which she says we shouldn't rely on that. We shouldn't rely on blame the victim, and she also spoke about counseling. True, faculty need counseling as much as students, but we forget about this reproductive role of the woman, a woman that goes for tenure with other men. But this is a woman that is a wife. This is a woman that is a mother. This is a woman that is a professional. This is a woman that, it belongs to other associations. And she needs the same number of publications like a man to go in for tenureship. She needs the same number of supervision. And when she goes to work, she teaches in higher education, same like a man. When she comes back from home, she's supposed to cook. She's supposed to mind the kids. She's a caregiver. I think women also need this counseling for their mental stability, for their mental health, so that they should be able to, put all this, I call them the reproductive role, the nurturing, the cleaning, and then the productive role, which is now the professional role where she is, and even the community role. So especially African women, these triple roles are very important to us. And then so she also reiterates Professor Atanga's mind when she said we need data. Yes, we need data. So we need data of women's scholarship out there. We need data to showcase women's activities. We need data to show the progress that women are doing in higher education. This is going to influence and also encourage other women to join the bandwagon. So I think it's very important. Our last but not the least speaker who just spoke, Professor Ikio, I'm so excited because he actually said that this awareness starts from the house. If we listen to Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's "We Should All Be Feminists," she said we groom men and women, we grow our male and female children differently. We make women to understand that they are supposed to be cooking, while men are supposed to sit and watch TV. So but when it starts from home, this awareness, when we make them understand that both men and women are supposed to do things as our kids from home, the same or differently, then when they get to higher education, they see the woman as a peer. They see the woman as a colleague and not as a subordinate or a second-class citizen. And he also said that women should be assertive. Yes, there is the idea of assertiveness, because assertiveness will also build your awareness, and assertiveness will build your self-esteem. That is very true. And I want to add that this self-esteem also comes when you make progress in higher education. Your publication should speak for you. Your research should be able to speak out for you. But we have another challenge. I will add my own voice to this. Most of the scholarships and grants that we have in higher education, especially for women, African women, is limited. Why do I say this? I say this because Africa and our culture, we know the role of being a wife, of being a mother. If you're not married and you don't have children, the society doesn't respect you. And there are ages for this. And when you get to a certain age and you are not married, you go out of age, you go out of school. Maybe after a first degree, you struggle to get a husband and then to start making your children before going back to school. Some of these scholarships are labeled with age barriers. Any woman above maybe 30 or 35 will not qualify for this scholarship, maybe for a graduate program. These are some of the things that stifle women because they want to keep up with the culture, they want to keep up with the traditional ethos, and then they want to move on with higher education. With that said, if our sister Sheila is there, we want to listen to her so that we give over the floor back to AAU. But if Sheila is not there, Felicia, do we have questions to our panelists?
Okay, in that case, we'll quickly take two presentations from two project teams, and then after that, you can come in and moderate the Q&A session. The presentations are only for 5 minutes each. I think we can finish with those quickly.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for moderating this session. You've actually done the job. I was coming to wrap up in terms of the key issues raised, but you've done that beautifully, and we really want to appreciate you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay.
So we'll move on to receive the project presentations. And we have presentation from two teams. We have the presentation by Afrobarometer, so maybe we'll take that first. And this will be done by Mame Ekuya Amuachum, who is the communications coordinator for Anglophone West and North Africa, based at the Ghana Center for Democratic Development. This is CDD Ghana. In this capacity, she's responsible for coordinating AB's communication activities in Ghana, in Nigeria, Sierra Leone, the Gambia, Liberia, including Tunisia, Algeria, Cape Verde, and Sao Tome and Principe. She has published many publications on gender equality and gender-based violence in Liberia, Morocco, Ghana, Gambia, and Sierra Leone using Afrobarometer's data. So over to you, Mami. I think you only have 5 minutes to present to us about all the wonderful things that Afrobarometer has been doing as pertains to gender-related issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. Thank you for that warm invitation and introduction. I'm going to share my screen, so please give me a second to do that. I have a few slides that I'd like to share with our participants. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can, Mami. So you can put it on presentation. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
All right, awesome. So Felicia has already introduced me, so we'll not spend a lot of time. I'll just go straight into the findings, but before that, I'd like to give us a brief introduction about Afrobarometer. So Afrobarometer is a Pan-African survey research organization that provides reliable data on the experiences, evaluations, aspirations of African citizens regarding democracy, governance, quality of life. We also have other interesting topics like gender that I'll be sharing with you today, and climate change, COVID, and many more. Our goal as an organization is to give African publics a voice in policy and decision making. And our objectives include to gather high quality data, to share data findings widely with policy actors, media, citizens, and organizations like the AAU and people like you to impact policy, and also to build capacity for data collection, analysis, and communication. So that's a brief introduction about Afrobarometer. And with that, I'd like to go straight into our findings to show you the educational attainments by gender across 39 African countries. So on average, across 39 African countries, women are somewhat less likely than men to have post-secondary qualifications or secondary schooling. And women are also more likely to report only primary education or no formal schooling. So from my charts, you can see only 16% of women across 39 countries reports having post-secondary education. But when you look at men, then you have 20% of them reporting same. Now let's move on to see educational attainment by gender across 30 countries, but over time, right? Again, our data reveals that on average, across 30 countries that Afrobarometer has surveyed consistently since 2011-2013, the proportion of men with secondary or post-secondary education has increased by 4 percentage points. So we see a jump from 54% in 2013 to 58% in 2021-2023, right? And then we also see that there has been a 6 percentage point improvement for women across the same period. And for me, that's exciting, right? So the number of women who say they have secondary or post-secondary education has improved by 6 percentage points from 2011-2013 to 2021-2023. But there's an 8-point disadvantage for women, which remains because 58% of men reports having, secondary or post-secondary education, while only 50% of women report same. So this takes me to my next slide, where we're looking at gender gaps in lack of formal education and achievement of post-secondary education. Now, if you look at the yellow chart, we see that in more than 20 of the countries surveyed, women are more likely than men to lack formal education, with double-digit gaps in countries like Guinea, Benin, Togo, Sierra Leone, Mali, Liberia, and Ethiopia. And in fact, Lesotho is the only country where significantly more men than women lack formal education. And quickly moving on to the blue charts on the same slide, we actually see a reverse pattern when it comes to post-secondary education. Men are more likely to have post-secondary education in countries where significantly more women than men have post-secondary education. Now let's zoom on, into the women in terms of education. So this slide is just about women. So we're looking at educational attainment among women. Now, on average, across 39 countries, urban women, and that's the purple colored chart, are almost twice as likely as rural women to have secondary or post-secondary qualifications. Similarly, economically better off women, and that's 72% of the no-lift poverty, are more likely than their poorer counterparts, and this ranging from 41% to 58%, to report having secondary or post-secondary education. And in terms of age, our data shows us that young women, so we're looking at those aged between 18 to 35 years, are twice as likely to have at least a secondary education as compared to women over age 55 years. So this is a 60 versus a 30 percentage data as we see on our screen. And considering that I only have 5 minutes, this brings me to the end of my presentation. I'd like to thank AAU, Felicia, and everybody else for putting this together, and to encourage all the participants to visit our website, www.afrobarometer.org, to get more data on gender and other, salient topics. Thank you very much, Felicia. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mami Kuya and the Afrobarometer team, for that insightful presentation. We've been able to pick up, a bird's eye view of what is happening in terms of, key data, key statistics as relate to women's involvement in higher education and at what level and all of that. So thanks very much. I think you also shared your website and other information with us. We would include it when we are sending out follow-up communication with participants, so they can contact you directly in case they want to further engage. We'll move on straight. Yeah, thank you. We'll move on straight to the next presentation. I think we are a bit time bad, but we'll try and manage so we still make time for Q&A session where participants will be able to engage. The next presentation will be done by Dr. Lucy Wakiaga, who is an associate research scientist at APHRC. She's a project manager for the project called Pedagogies of Inclusion, the nexus between gender, pedagogy, and STEM in higher education in sub-Saharan Africa. Like I said, she works with the African Population and Research Center. This is APHRC. She earned her doctorate in educational administration and leadership from Howard University in Washington, D.C. Her areas of research interest include research in education, women in higher educational leadership, teacher preparation and training, curriculum development, and program evaluation. Over to you, Doc. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Felicia. I know time is very limited, and we've been learning a lot. And it says when you have fun, time seems to move by so fast. So thank you for the opportunity. I'll try to be as brief as I can. You've already mentioned about my organization, and I just wanted to also share, I don't know if this is, that we have been collaborating with AAU on the Pedagogies of Inclusion project, and we recently had a very successful co-creation workshop with stakeholders of AAU in the STEM research ecosystem. So I'm grateful for this opportunity once again to be able to share on this exciting project. So the project is the nexus between gender, pedagogy, and STEM in higher education in sub-Saharan Africa. This is an IDRC funded project, and it's an offshoot of a similar project that just ended in 2023, a 5-year project that was looking at women in STEM careers. So it was realized that there was a gap in terms of looking into programs in higher education, because there's so much that is written about young women and girls pre-higher education, and then there is also a lot of attention being given to women after they have matriculated from higher education. So this piece of women, STEM women in higher education seems to have been an area that has not been given attention. So hence the genesis of this project. So the Pedagogies of Inclusion STEM project is basically looking at we have three key areas. Looking at issues of pedagogical practices in higher education institutions, and how these pedagogical practices could either be inhibiting or promoting STEM and interest of young women in STEM in higher education, and for their matriculation also through STEM, the various STEM disciplines in higher education. So the focus is on the young women, but the focus is also on other marginalized populations that are socially excluded from STEM programs in sub-Saharan Africa. So the hope is that whatever research that comes out of this project will form a collaborative agenda where STEM practitioners and policymakers can come together towards addressing these inhibitors that prevent the advancement of women, and we can have a community of practice whereby best practices or innovative practices in pedagogy can be promoted. So the project is in two phases. The first phase is a scoping review, where we are collecting evidence on the intersection between gender diversity, inclusion, and pedagogy in STEM programs in higher education in sub-Saharan Africa. And then the evidence from the scoping review will then be used to inform case studies. So look at particular programs. There could be innovative in the sense of faculty actually engaging in innovative practices, or institutions that have policies on innovative practices. And as I shared earlier, this is supposed to build this collaborative agenda with key stakeholders in higher education. So this is a framework of the scoping review, research framework that we are using. And as you can see, we have 5 stages. And in each of those stages, we're supposed to integrate stakeholder engagement across sub-Saharan Africa. and that is the reason why we collaborate. We are collaborating with the AAU, because the AAU has that convening power. It has a continental as well as a global reach, and so that is how we collaborated with them, and we were able to, collaborated for the co-creation workshop. We were able to bring a lot of stakeholders together and had a very engaging discussion around the issue of pedagogy and STEM in higher education. And we are continuing to collaborate with the AAU for successive follow-up workshops with the stakeholders in STEM programs in higher education. So, as I've already shared with the case studies, primarily we are going to focus on resources, we are going to have focus groups. We are going to have interviews with faculty and institutional leaders, and of course the research is going to be very particular, focusing on individuals who can provide us with information around these innovative practices. The stakeholders that we are going to, or this research is targeting, includes all those that are listed here: faculty members, research commissions and institutions, ministries of education, and then more importantly, we are also collaborating with regional bodies. Besides the AAU, we have Association of Development of Education in Africa, we have SARUA, we have IUCEA, and all these, if you look at them, they are regional bodies that really, regional and continental bodies that have that convening power that allows us to engage with stakeholders across sub-Saharan Africa, and to have our stakeholders be part and parcel of this research project, so there can be buy-in and we can have ownership of the findings and be able to use that to build the collaborative agenda around innovative practices in STEM. I'm not going to go into the literature because in this conference today, a lot has been talked about with regards to these barriers to gender mainstreaming, gender inclusion, and just for clarity, our focus with these barriers and to inclusion in higher education is focusing mainly on STEM disciplines. So what we have at this particular time, and I see my time is running up, up to this particular point, we've been looking at these perceived challenges, and the conversations are still continuing. And we hope that what we are learning from our stakeholders will be able to inform the research framework, and then be able to share these findings back with the stakeholders. These are just some of the issues that have been coming up in terms of systemic challenges, whether they are policies, affirmative action. All these have been talked about today, and then also on pedagogical practices. So I would wish to stop there, Felicia. I know we are running out of time, so let me not go on and on. You can also visit our website to learn more about the project, as well as the work that African Population and Health Research Center does in terms of other research areas. Thank you so much. Thank you, Felicia. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lucy, for that insightful presentation as well. Similarly, as I mentioned after the Afrobarometer presentation, we would equally want to have the links to the website, to the various publications and things, so that participants can follow through later on. So thank you very much. I think at this point we get to move to Q&A session. I would really want participants who have contributions, who have questions, to raise their hand, and then they would be called to unmute. We can have a number of them, maybe just about 5 or so, as we can see, and then we move on to end the session. It's been a very fruitful session with quality presentations and quality submissions from our panel team, from our keynote speakers, and then from the project presentations as well. Please feel free to contribute to any of these sessions, be it a question or if you want to add your voice to anything raised earlier. We just would have 1 or 2 minutes per each participant who want to contribute. And then we'll take about 5 of them and we can wrap up the session. I think I don't see any hand up. Okay. But I think I noticed 1 or 2 posts on the chat, so I'll try and read them. There was a point about providing psychological support to women. I saw that earlier. There was also a point from Madam Mary Mwangi about the need to promote responsive, gender-sensitive curriculum and how that is critical. Another comment from Nelly Uhoche says that employers of labor must create family-friendly workplaces to create work-life balance for working mothers. So she's talking about having a creche being provided within the workspaces so that women can focus on work and yet guarantee that their child is safe by close of day. So really about providing safe spaces so that women can work and be able to balance it with their roles as well. But otherwise, I think most of the comments were really talking about the fact that it's been wonderful insights on various things, including barriers to women's representation in academia as well as others. So those are some of the comments which came through. I think I only see one hand up now from Boaz Waraku. So please, you can unmute and then make your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Felicia and colleagues. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes, it's a special occasion, a day that I think I always reserve to celebrate my sisters, my daughters, my wife. You've heard that I said my wife, I didn't say wives. And my grandma, my mom, I've mentioned all that, and my teachers, because among the teachers, the people who made me were female teachers. And indeed, those who ensured I was fast-tracked in primary class 1 were female teachers, because I could not have my hand reach my other ear. And there is this lady who said, this one can learn, let him just go and play in there. So I would say that a day like this, when we are celebrating the International Women's Day, I think it is important that we hoist that flag up. I do serve with ANSEFA, the African Network Campaign on Education for All. And indeed, I think the sessions that have gone on, the presentations are speaking to the core of what we do. I like the discussions about the gender responsive pedagogies, but also on financing. I think the gender budgeting components that ensures that in our education setups, then we are able to actually support the development of safe spaces and quality attributes that would also be attractive and open on equitable grounds to the genders, including those with different abilities, because indeed we also have people with different abilities. So I think for me, the occasion like this one, which the whole world, I was actually with the Fawe Kenya chapter in trying to just celebrate that. And I said, for me, it is important that the policies that are to be established or to be created should be policies that reverse the decadent, conservative, traditional, cultural norms of the past, because those are the only pullbacks blocks or encumbrances that actually block or become the barriers to women ascending to the various echelons, the highest echelons of our academia and even the leaderships. And indeed, I think the emphasis also made on the aspect that we rarely take matters to the final or penultimate end. For example, when COVID struck, and the example in Kenya where many girls didn't go back to school, and you find that this nobody really wanted to follow up. Even as people speak now, we keep asking ourselves, where are these girls who dropped out of school, who were pushed out of school? And indeed, because a girl pushed out of school, lineage, you know, a whole society destroyed, because such an innocent person would never know the value of education in the final end. So I think our commitment, making safe spaces and investing in the women now, if the societies are to be transformed. So there's a lot that I could have talked about, but just because of the small input, I think allow me to end there. But I congratulate you and all the women who are promoting this agenda, because indeed it is the only thing that we can do at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we also appreciate all the National Women's Day celebration from the Ministry of Higher Education, the Gambia. It's good to increase the participation of female gender in tertiary and higher education in the Gambia. We hope this would help illuminate the situation of the female gender in terms of enrollment, leadership, and the like. Higher education is crucial in giving women and girls a better chance in life. Thank you all, and God bless you. So thank you very much. We are really happy to know that the ministry joined us at today's session. This is a question from Madam Millicent at Champon, and she says, any insight into funding or budgeting opportunities for women in higher education and research? So I will throw this out to any of our speakers, from Prof. Barnabas to Professor Kuso from UCC, and then any of our keynote presenters who want to respond in terms of the issues related to the available opportunities for funding women. But maybe before they do, I will just create opportunity for there's a hand raised up, so we take that and respond to the two questions, and we can wrap up. So that is Shaibu Bello. Sir, please unmute yourself and then make your submission. Thank you.
I'm in Sokoto, northwestern Nigeria. And you did make a point about the one man in the group and what does a man really know about the experience of it. I said, that is exactly the point. You need to engage, we need to engagement. There should be as many men here as there are women, because you need to engage them to know what this issue is and what is the harm of their actions or lack of action. This is because the current world is about cloud intelligence. You need everybody of the human race to improve our life. And you can't keep one section out thinking that there are values that culture or other things may have placed on them that should stay. It's a lose, you lose. So it's a win-win for men when you try to remove the barriers for women, and when you try to make it inclusive in whatever you do, that there are women there to participate and to give what they have that sometimes is better than what men have, depending on the other things that we used to know. We all know it's now biology, but how many men know this? One of the principles of change is to convert your enemy to supporters, because there's this law that once you push, the pushback is usually equal and opposite. But if you convert them to what you are doing by giving them knowledge, by making them realize the damage they are doing and how it could be better if they behave the other way, and if the policies were established another way, I think it tends to give better results. From of men engagement, let's include men in whatever we do concerning women upliftment and reducing inequality that concern women. Let men be as much there as they are women, so that at least they know what is happening and they know what they have to do.
Thank you very much, sir, for your question. Maybe two of our speakers to respond to the question related to the various funding opportunities. Was a question posted by one of the participants as well. So we'll quickly get a response on that, and then I would invite Madame Nudmod Lamini to give the closing remarks for the session.
Hello.
Hello, Prof. Yes, please.
Yes. I think in that space, there is generally some specific fundings that come up. One of them, Women in Science, and I know there are many others that come up. And in most of these funding areas, grants that are education focused, especially I want to be very specific about the last 10 years, which I'm part of. I know that a great percentage of higher education funding is dedicated to females, and you even have allocation of funds given to a higher reward. So, and over 53 universities in Africa are involved in this, and that has actually had a great impact on increasing the number of women in higher education programs in Africa, especially in focusing in West and Central Africa. Even about, of course, within East and Southern Africa as well. So these are, and the statistics are even there. I think the AAU has the statistics that this is what has happened in the sub-region and the region in the last 10 years. So I think there are a lot of other opportunities, but we will encourage more to come up. And I also would like to say that it's rather we bring in funding for everybody, but then insist that a certain percentage should be for females than being specific about females. Because if we do that, it may be that in the next 10 to 20 years, we will see that there will be a decline in male in solving the problem. So we should put a level playing field, bring in grants for higher education in Africa, ensure that those implementing such grants carry along women, females, and that's
to add to that, Felicia, I think that the problem with funding, as Liz mentioned in her summary, most of the time they tag this to age limits, which is inhibiting for us women because of the social influences. Most of the time, by the time you are ready to undertake your PhD, you want to first marry, have children, and so forth. When you are ready to access the funds, then the age element comes in, and that makes it very inhibiting for most women to access the funding. So that is one area that we can also look at. When it comes to the certain age limit, can women be exempted, for instance, so that regardless of the age limit, Barnabas mentioned at the age at which then at the institutional level, gender budgeting has two approaches. Gender issues into the broad institutional budget, which is the best to engage on this, how to integrate women issues into the broad institutional budget rather than having a separate budget that looks at women issues. On that note, I would like to thank you for having me and thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much. I think we've received some great contributions and great comments from our speakers related to the questions. We've also received some, good contributions as well from all of us, the participants. On that note, at this point, we would move on to take the final closing remarks. And this would be given by Madame Nudmod Lamini, who is the Director of ICT Communications and Knowledge Management here at the AAU. While she gets ready to come, maybe I would also alert us that we would have a group photo at the end of the session. So let's start getting ready to turn on our cameras and so that we have a group photo to remind us of this great day and this great discussions that we've had so far. So we'll receive closing remarks, like I mentioned, from Madame Nudmod Lamini. She's the Director of ICT Communications and Knowledge Management here at the Association of African Universities. If Madame is on standby, you have the floor.
Thank you, Felicia. On behalf of the AAU Secretary General.
Now, talking about the charter is the document that.
Sorry, can we mute?
I'd like to thank each of you for participating in today's program to commemorate the 2024 International Women's Day under the theme Investing in Women in African Higher Education, Accelerating Progress. We at the AAU are grateful for the partnership with the African Women in Higher Education Network, WoHEN, and the Women's University in Africa for collaborating with us in hosting this webinar.